That morning was one of the most frightening moments of my life. I was in court and about to be sentenced to 5 weeks in jail for driving drunk. That wasn't a position I ever imagined I would be in. Now, if you've been to court, you'll see that sometimes people bring along a friend to support them, and usually those friends leave after the person receives their ruling. I was the last one to get sentenced that day, so the judge couldn't understand why there were still 18 extra people in her courtroom. My attorney explained, well, they're here to support Mr. Samson, Your Honor. And to that, she was truly surprised. I don't imagine judges get surprised by much. And then she counseled me. She said, you are very fortunate. Be sure to lean on those people when your time with us is done. 35 days later, I walked out of confinement, and I leaned on those people to help me rebuild my life. And my experience, what happened and what I learned, that's what I'm going to share with you today. Now, that original group of 18, they were from my recovery program, from my parish, from my community. They were part of my team. So much more than a support group, they helped contribute to my life, to my healing. And I did lean on that group over the last 18 months. During that time period, I lost 2 dear siblings. I went through major business upheavals, and our whole world walked through a global pandemic. As I was dealing with these events in my own life, I was somehow supposed to be guiding clients through events in their life and business. To do that, I needed to find a new way of living in the world, a way based on interdependence. That's not a term we talk about much, interdependence. It seems that whenever we think about entangling our lives with the lives of others, one fear arises, and that's the fear of codependence. We have this very real concern about an unhealthy reliance on another person or system. We want to stand completely on our own 2 feet. But do we? Do any of us stand completely on our own 2 feet? See, we worship this idea of the self-made woman, the self-made man, someone who can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. But is it true? It wasn't true for me. I could not succeed alone. But I did find a way to thrive together with a group of people who were on my team. And it worked. It worked because I was on their team too. That's what interdependence looks like. And right now, we need it more than ever. In fact, I'm going to make this bold statement. Our world needs a revolution of interdependence. A revolution where we learn how to thrive together, where we learn how to be vulnerable about our needs for each other, and where we learn how to demonstrate the belief that there's enough for all of our needs. This current system of rugged self-sufficiency, it is failing us. It's driven by an entire industry dedicated to telling us how to improve our lives. It's called the self-help industry. Maybe you've heard of it. And it's big. Worldwide last year, we spent $11 billion on books, videos, classes, all designed to tell us how to improve our lives. Now, that desire to improve our lives is natural, right? We want to be better than our parents, to be safer, more secure, to enjoy new luxuries. It's in our DNA and it's embedded in our social structure. So we spend a lot of money on self-help. Is it helping? Was it worth all those billions? It would be impossible to say yes to that question. Every year we spend more and more money on self-improvement. Yet, according to the World Health Organization, every year we become more and more depressed. And that was true even before we had a global pandemic. Now, I'm not suggesting that self-help is making us depressed, but we need to admit that it is not helping. There's 2 economists, Ann Case and Angus Deaton, and they coined a term called deaths of despair. And they use that term to describe an epidemic occurring among the white working class. In that group, the fastest growing rates of death are for drug overdose, suicide, and alcoholic liver disease. People are choosing an end to their life because they no longer believe they're part of the great success story. They believe that they are stuck in rags with no path to riches. So all this self-help does not seem to be improving our mental well-being. Well, maybe all those ideas are making us wealthier. Nope, we're actually going backward in that regard. Everywhere we look, we see signs of the American dream in decline. Less than half of workers today in their 30s and 40s will make more than their parents did at the same age. There is a lack of upward economic mobility among people of color. There's a continuing gender pay gap. The zip code you're born in determines your chances in life. Look, I could give you more data, but here's my point. We are spending billions of dollars a year on self-help, and we are not helping ourselves. If you want to learn how we need each other, just ask an addict, ask someone in recovery, and we will tell you that we're most healthy when we seek the welfare of others, and we're most sick and most vulnerable to our disease when we look only at our own needs. See, humans are meaning-making creatures. We make sense of the world in part by our desire to belong. Learning how to thrive together is a blueprint for a kind of future where more people can succeed and more people can feel connected. Okay, so where do we begin? How do we begin to move toward interdependence? Well, as I've learned in the rooms of recovery, the first step toward solving a problem is admitting you have one. Here's our global cultural problem. Self-help is not helping. All our attempts to succeed alone have left us poor, depressed, and in a state of great despair. To move beyond this current state, we need the resources of each person, and we need each other more than ever before, and we need the resources of each person. Look, if you want proof of how we need each other, just ask an addict, ask someone in recovery, and we'll tell you that we are most sick when we seek the welfare of others, and we're most healthy when we're most healthy when we seek the welfare of others, and we're most sick when we look out only for our own needs. So, how do we begin to move toward interdependence? Well, I'm going to offer you 3 design ideas that you can test in your own life. These are ideas that I'm testing to build interdependence in my life. So let's start with this first problem that we do not know how to thrive together. To prototype a solution to that problem, a group of us have begun asking this design question. What would it look like if we got together once a week, we talk about our needs for each other, we talk about our desires for the world, for each other, for our family, and we offer to make whatever resources we have available to each other. Now, we'll see how that prototype works out, but this talk you're hearing is one of the outgrowths of it. Another problem that often gets in the way of interdependence is the idea that we don't want to feel reliant on another person. We are concerned about codependence. Who will I be, after all, if my identity is tied up with others? So what would it look like if we could begin to ask this question? How can we practice healthy interdependence? How can we practice healthy entanglement with others? And further, how can we create a place to practice the beliefs necessary for that? Now, for those of us that spend time in the rooms of recovery, we see this modeled and prototyped every day. And we model that behavior because it's also true that our very survival depends on it. And this is important, it's also true that the rooms of recovery give us a chance to practice these new beliefs. Beliefs in self-honesty, authenticity, and vulnerability. And if those attitudes and skills are necessary for thriving together, then we need to find a place to practice them. Look, you want to become a better writer, then write. You want to become a better accountant? Add, or whatever it is that accountants do. You want to be somebody who practices interdependence and vulnerability? Look for a place to practice that belief. So we need to find a way to thrive together since we can't succeed alone. And since we don't know how to express our needs for others, we need to find a way to practice interdependence and vulnerability. But a third belief badly in need of a redesign is the belief, and this may even be our greatest fear, that there will not be enough, that our needs and our wants will go unmet because of scarcity. A group of us have been prototyping a solution to this problem for almost 17 years. We started with the basic design question: how can we help eliminate economic isolation? And so we began to pool money with people we know to provide resources for people we care about. And here's an example of what that looks like. When I taught at the college level, I had a student who was the first in his family to go beyond high school. And that was true for a lot of my kids coming from Appalachia. In his campus job, he fell down and he broke his 2 front teeth. And he was then faced with the awful choice of getting his teeth fixed or continuing his education. He could not do both, and he felt so alone. I brought the need to our group, we talked about it, and we decided to meet it. He went to the dentist, he got his teeth fixed, and we paid the bill. It was a simple way to meet a need, but with profound impact on that one person's life. Over the last 17 years, we've given away hundreds of thousands of dollars in that way. We've seen lives changed, all by asking the simple question, how can we help our neighbor feel less alone economically? So these are examples, prototypes of what a revolution of interdependence can look like. Through them, I'm creating that revolution for myself. I offered you 3 design ideas that you can take and test in your own life and community. First, find a way to practice thriving together with a group of people committed to each other and to your common welfare. Second, find a way to practice belief in self-honesty, authenticity, and vulnerability. And third, find a way to demonstrate that there's enough resources for all. There was a time when I believed I could succeed alone, and that did not end well. Through these design prototypes, I myself am learning that another kind of life is possible. Another kind of world is possible. Together, we can keep testing that theory. Won't you join me?